Welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name's Chris. In my hands here are two pieces to what should be one piece of the clutch cross shaft for operating the clutch. So you got your actuator here, and this whole thing kind of rotates in the bell housing of the transmission. And there's a fork that's on here, and the fork engages the throwout bearing, and you engage the clutch. Well, there's a dowel bolt, for lack of a better way to put it, that holds that clutch fork onto this shaft. And there's just one of them, and it's pretty notorious for breaking. And then when that happens, either you can get limited clutch travel or none at all, and you are essentially stranded. There's a couple different modifications you can do. You can get an improved bolt, or you can put in another bolt 90 degrees opposed to try to strengthen that and kind of spread the load. So that's what I did on my new cross shaft, and I'll show you how I did it. So thanks for watching. Let's get it sorted. So I had to pick up, obviously, a new operating shaft because I had to cut the old one in half. There are a couple different kinds for this. This is a greasable one. Some of the earlier transmissions had Zerk fittings, and they were greasable with the bushings, so that's what I've got. So if you're going to do this modification and you have to get a new shaft, make sure you get the right one. But essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to put this fork on there, get that properly aligned, get the original pin in there and get it tightened down, and then mark it and drill a hole through here all the way through, and then be able to thread, cut some threads in the back of this guy to be able to thread this guy through. So that's my intention. So we'll see how it works, and we will see if we can make this not fail when I am driving the car at some time in the future. So you can see that the screw hole is offset to the left here as you're looking at it. And you got to make sure that that's in the right spot. And the clutch lever, the actuating lever on this shaft, I'll show you that, faces down when you put it in. So put that in, face it down, come around here, get it lined up and all that kind of stuff so that you've got the proper orientation. Now I don't have bearings in here, so it's kind of jiggly and everything like that. I've got brand new bearings, brass or bushings, I should say, that go in where the shaft goes through, and those are greasable. Now that we got that lined up and we know which way we're going to go, so when the shaft actuating, the actuator is down, this kind of goes to the left. We're going to get that lined up, get that pin back in. Obviously, you got to pull this out to take it out. Get that pin back in, and then look at setting it up to be able to drill this hole and get that other bolt in. So I got the shaft out and got it back installed. I am using the bolt. I had mentioned that the other transmission already had this modification done. I'm using that same bolt, but I added a couple threads. What that person did was they welded a nut to the back of this. I don't really want to do that. I want to thread this directly. So I added some threads. So now when this goes through, I'm going to have enough threaded area there, and that's going to take care of it. So I'm going to drill a pilot hole first. And also what you need to worry about is this is a 1/4 28 bolt, but you don't want to use a 1/4 inch drill bit because that's exactly the same size as this, and now you've removed too much metal, and now you can't thread any threads. So I'm going to have to drill up and find the proper size. I don't know what it is right now, but I'll find the proper size to be able to drill out this so when I tap it, I have some threads. But first, I'm going to drill a 1/8 inch pilot hole, something small that'll let me go, and I'll be able to go all the way through. Now in here and in the shaft, I can do a full 1/4 inch, but when I get it to the back of this guy, that's when I need my special drill bit size. So like I said, we're going to go ahead, we're going to punch this so that I get a nice solid spot for it to go. I got a drill press so that, again, I've got a nice solid area to be able to drill it through. See if I can get it square as possible, and we'll go ahead and get it drilled. Got the drill press vise here, and I've got the shaft lined up, and what I did was I squared the head of the bolt flat on this portion of the vise and let it lie wherever it would lie as far as an angle. There, this fork is at a little bit of an angle, so it's not that big of a deal. Another point to make note of, depending on, regardless of how you want to attach the thread side of it, you do want the bolt to go to the front so that you can get it out. Obviously, you don't want to go in the back way, so you got to make sure that when you line this thing up, you're in the proper way. So we're going to go ahead, and there's 3 initials in here, KFT. I don't think this thing's original, probably, but that right in the F is where I'm going to smack it. So we're going to go ahead, try to get it just about lined up. That F is just about in the middle. Close enough anyway. All right, so it gives us a nice depression. Make sure nothing shifted. It doesn't look like it. And that'll give us a nice hole. So we're going to take that 1/8 inch drill bit and we're going all the way through. A little bit of oil there, a little 3-in-1 oil to provide some lubrication, nice and slow. But we're going all the way through with this guy. All right, a lot of shadows back here. Unfortunately, it's kind of in the deep, dark recesses of the barn here. One thing I wanted to point out too was when I'm coming down with the drill press, when that drill hits, I don't want it to turn or to move or anything like that. I want to try to hit that as square as I can so that once I start drilling and it starts going in, it's going to go in straight. So I'm lining that up right now as best I can. I don't know if you can see it sliding around on me. That's pretty good right there. All right, so that's pretty good. It doesn't have to be exact, but I want to try to get it as good as I can. So get some lubricant here. I'm going to take it nice and easy. Not a lot of pressure. Again, I want to try to get this as square as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want this thing going in at an angle because I want to try to have the forces work perpendicular to this other one. So try to keep it as square and 90 degrees to the other one as you can. That'll help minimize the load or spread it over these two attachment points. All right, all the way through on that, no problem. In there, I sped it up, but in there, there was no place for it's a long hole as compared to the width of the hole, or the diameter of the hole. So I started to get metal chunks kind of stuck in there. So that's why I was kind of evacuating the drill every once in a while. Give room for the metal shavings to get out of the way. All right, so we're gonna go to the 1/4 inch drill bit now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through at least the front and a little bit into the shaft, but then I'm gonna stop. Right, and I want to go through all the way because then I will just have destroyed everything that I worked for here because now I'm not going to be able to do threads. So we'll go grab the 1/4 inch drill bit real quick and we'll get going on that. Same thing here. You want to try to line up that drill bit so when you go down with it, it doesn't move around at all. And that looks good. A little harder to see on the thicker drill bits because it doesn't want to wiggle as much, but it looks good here. All right, so I'm into the shaft there and I'm going to stop here. I'm going to take this guy off, the fork off, set that aside, and then go in and finish drilling through on the shaft. All right, there's that. Wonder how square I got it. Actually looks pretty good. All right, bring it back over to the workbench where the lighting's better. We'll see how it lines up. All right, so I got the shaft back on here, and the drill bit size for 1/4 28 is what I looked up, 7/32, but I went a little bit smaller than that. I got a 13/64 here, and because I'm a little gun shy. So we'll go ahead, we'll leave this lined up like it is, go back over to the drill press and drill it through, and then hopefully come through. Now looking at this, it looks like I'm just a little off center, so I might be able to adjust that a little bit. I want to try to get this little guy hole here as centered up in this bigger hole here, so that when I bring the drill bit through, it doesn't try to make its own path, so to speak. So we'll get this lined up as best I can. I'm going to eyeball it, bring it back over to the press, and finish it up. So just kind of eyeballing it here. I got it lined up as good as I could. When that drill bit goes down, it's going to offset on that hole and it's going to kick over to the side a little bit, and there's not really a whole lot I can do about it. So we're just going to go slow and hopefully just barely start to cut. And my concern is that the threads don't line up all the way through, and I go to screw in and it doesn't screw in because the holes aren't aligned. There may be a better way to do this. I'm not a machinist by any means, but here we go. All right, well, I'm through. So now we're going to go ahead and take that over to the bench for the vise, trying to get it threaded. All right, so I got the clutch fork here, and I think what I'm going to try to do is instead of tapping from this side, I'm going to try to tap from this side, and I'm hoping that will help it align itself a little bit more. I'm not so sure that it's going to work, but it's worth a shot. It's also a little bit of an awkward shape here, so it's going to be hard to, going to have to kind of do stuff in an angle a little bit, which isn't really cool. Use the little guy here. All right, again, a little bit of lubricant. Should be good. Nice and easy without blocking the shot. All right, every once in a while you gotta kind of go backwards here so that you break that metal away so that it falls. All right, so it looks like I got it. Line this out. Looks pretty good. Bring it through and see if it threads up all the way. And it looks like I'm going to have to add a little bit more thread on this bolt here, and maybe even file some of it off. Now it's a little long, but that's fine. So we'll add a little bit of thread to this, but let's get the shaft real quick. Put this on the shaft and make sure the shaft is going to take it. All right, so we got the hook on there, or the fork on there, and we're going to stick the screw through, make sure it goes all the way through. It's fighting me. Let's see, maybe if I get you can definitely see where it's off. Yeah, this might not work. Let's see if we can't do some magic here. All right, well, it worked good enough. Doesn't look like it's eating the threads as it goes through, so that's good. Definitely tight though. All right, so I got lucky. That worked. And the threads look pretty good, pretty intact. So I'm confident. But I don't know how well you can see that, but that's just a little bit off. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut some more threads into this guy, and then I'll give you the wrap up here in a little bit. So that worked out pretty well. As a little tip here, if you do decide to thread it directly into the fork, I found that if you put this in first and kind of get that started, and then you got a little bit of wiggle room here, that'll let you get this in. So just, you know, as typical when you're trying to align stuff, leave everything loose and then not tighten it until you're ready to go. Also wanted to point out that this is the same bolt that the previous owner, whoever did this modification on the other gearbox, it's their same bolt. I don't see why you can't go get your own bolt. And, you know, a nice little quarter 28 bolt. I would recommend the same size. But, you know, like a grade 8 or something that's going to be pretty strong. No reason why you can't use whatever you want to. Another modification that they did that I do like is, if you might be able to tell, that there's holes drilled through the heads of these bolts, and they threaded lock wire between the two. I don't know that that's necessarily required, but it definitely doesn't hurt, and it will prevent loosening. So you can see how much of that thread protrudes out the back. Again, picking a different bolt here might change that, but I'm just going to go ahead and essentially grind that away until it's a little bit more flush. Not that it's going to hurt anything, but if worse had come to worse and I had screwed up that threading, or the lineup didn't work for me or whatever like that, I still could have gone ahead if I wanted to and welded a nut onto the back of this. I just am not as confident in my welding ability that I wouldn't eventually have cracked those welds, and then now I got a nut rolling around on the bottom of my transmission, and essentially this thing is now no different than it was before. So I feel a little bit better about threading it directly into the fork. All right, so worthwhile modification. Only took me about an hour and a half, and that was spending the extra time just to make sure to try to get everything lined up as good as I could, and come up with the proper way to do it. The alignment is crucial. Make sure the typical check, measure twice and cut once kind of thing. Make sure you're all good to go. But again, a worthwhile modification here. If you shear this bolt and it shears in such a way that it allows this fork to then become loose, you could really have problems getting the car into gear, or in the worst case, this fork just spins freely on the shaft, and now you have no clutch, and therefore you're limping home. So that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.